Good morning, everybody. Or is it morning? It's morning. Okay. What time is it? It is afternoon. How are you? I am joined today by Attorney General Karl Racine, Ron Ross, who's the Director of the Mayor's Office of Legal Counsel, Unique Morris Hughes, who's the Director of the Department of Employment Services, and other members of my team who are available for questions as well. We are here to announce an exciting investment in our efforts to make DC safer and stronger. Earlier this week, we had with Deputy Mayor Donahue and Chief Peter Newsham a wholesome discussion of the city's efforts to reduce gun violence and thereby turn around the unfortunate, very unfortunate spike in homicides that we have seen in recent months. As I've said before, reducing violence in our city requires an approach that includes police involvement, human services involvement, and the community. To that point, my administration has focused extensive resources on both traditional law enforcement tools, like the legislation that we're sending to the council that will allow us to offer financial incentives to senior officers and detectives who remain on the force, as well as innovative public health approaches to reducing cycles of violence. The Senior Police Officer Program we discussed on Monday as well. It will expire on September 30th for detectives whose knowledge and experience we need to solve violent crime in the city. And we will work with members of the council to have that passed just as soon as possible. We have talked about growing our police force to 4,000 officers, and we cannot afford to lose 70 officers on that day. In addition to this work, we haven't lost sight on the need to continuously connect residents to meaningful career opportunities. So today, we will announce a significant investment in our work to prevent violence through violence interruption efforts and training DC residents for the jobs that we are creating in the district. Last year, Washington Gas and Alta Gas merged, and as part of that merger, the Office of the Attorney General, the Office of the People's Counsel, and the Department of Energy and the Environment successfully negotiated a wide-ranging settlement agreement with Alta Gas. Part of that settlement agreement included $6 million to fund programs focused on workforce development and violence reduction. Of this $6 million settlement, the Attorney General will talk about a significant investment in violence interruption programs shepherded by the Cure the Streets program in Washington, D.C. And I'll turn to the Attorney General in a second to talk about that. We will also be investing $4 million towards the D.C. Infrastructure Academy. When we created the D.C. Infrastructure Academy, what we were seeing was about 50% of the infrastructure jobs that we are creating in our city that generally pay $50 an hour were going unfilled and unfilled by DC residents. What we also know is that when we connect people to good paying jobs, we can steer them away from crimes of opportunity or economic crimes because they are gainfully employed right here in the city that we all love. So with that, I want to turn to Attorney General Racine to speak in more detail about our violence interruption efforts, and then we're all happy to answer questions about how we're creating jobs and how we're connecting to jobs. And I also want to recognize the presence of representatives from Alta Gas, and we will turn to your questions shortly. Attorney General Racine.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Karl Racine, the Attorney General of the District of Columbia. I'm particularly pleased, truly ecstatic today to join the mayor in a partnership around the continuation of funding for the Cure the Streets program. The Cure the Streets program is an evidence-based approach to interrupting violence that has been proven successful in over 100 jurisdictions, both in the United States as well as internationally. The program started as a pilot as a result of allocation of about $360,000 from the council around Memorial Day. In order for us to responsibly determine whether or not a Cure the Streets approach can help reduce violence in the District of Columbia, it's really important for us to have more than just a few months of a pilot. We really need about a year plus. So far, the Cure the Streets program is in 2 sites located in 2 wards in the District of Columbia, Ward 5 and Ward 8. Those wards were selected after reviewing MPD violence data over a period of 5 years. I'm happy to report that since August, when the Cure the Streets team has hit the streets, while there have been shootings in both the sites, shootings that of course have hurt and injured people, thus far there have not been any homicides. And so we're looking forward to continuing the work. And I want to really be very clear here. The Office of Attorney General worked hard to negotiate a deal that was a winning deal for the city, and also was a deal that Alta wanted to come into the city, making it clear that they wanted to contribute to the district's most important issues. I also want to make it clear that when I came to the mayor just a few weeks ago, I think it was, and we talked about the potential investment in Cure the Streets, Mayor Bowser didn't flinch, didn't hesitate. She was immediate in her recognition that the program should go on. And for that, I want to thank the mayor. I also note the presence of Chief Newsham, and I think it's important to note that we require so much of our police officers every single day, and they do, more than just the job description. They're really trying as best they can to uplift safety, and we think Cure the Streets can be helpful in a different way than law enforcement. I know Chief Newsham's been supportive of the program. Cure the Streets has 3 facets to it. Number 1, we identify, hire, and train credible individuals who know the communities. They go out and do hard work and talk to people who may be engaged in violence and simply try to talk them out of committing further crimes in those locations. Additionally, we seek to connect the individuals who demonstrate an interest in changing their lives to services, and that's where, again, we partner really well with the mayor's agencies. And lastly, and most importantly, what Cure the Street seeks to do is change the normalization of violence. We want to show the community that we're outraged at any shooting or any killing. And I think we're off to a good start, and with the mayor's support, we're going to be moving forward at least through July 2020. So thank you very much, Mayor Bowser and Police Chief Newsham.
Okay, we're happy to answer any questions. Sam, yes.
This is a question for the Attorney General. The other day, Mr. Racine, during the Mayor Council breakfast, you were comparing the situation, I think, to New York. You had said that they had, I guess, spent a couple $100 million a year on what you would call non-police crime fighting, if you will. Is this the same thing, or?
Indeed, at the Mayor Council breakfast, I think it was a really, truly remarkable breakfast for the consensus around the table, led by the mayor, around a holistic approach to reducing crime, recognizing that we can't just rely on the police, no matter how great a job they do. Yes, in New York and other jurisdictions that have had the Cure Violence model in place for years and sometimes a decade plus, they've continued to invest resources. I really think it's important for us to first understand how well we're doing in the District of Columbia before we make the kind of investment that the other jurisdictions like New York and LA have. I should have noted the impressive presence of the folks in the yellow shirts here who are indeed the cure the street professionals. Thank you for your question, Sam.
Well, then the mayor, afterward, I remember we asked Mayor Bowser about that. She said there are differences. She said, for example,
Hey, Sam, what's your question?
well, that's the question. You
Okay.
said the difference is that they don't have stop and frisk.
No, I said that there are many things that contribute to reductions in violence, and there are many things that we do in the district that contribute to reductions in violence.
So I guess the question is, how do you feel about this idea of stop and frisk in D.C.? Because apparently that's a big issue here.
No, it's not.
Well, it may not be what I'm hearing it on the street. It is a big issue. And the question is are you going to be able to cut violence by giving the police more authority in that area or not?
The police have full police powers, and our police department is committed to constitutional policing. I'm very proud that we also have an independent police complaints board, and that police complaints board is the place for sure where we can find out any evidence of police misconduct. And that has not materialized. We have also equipped all of our patrol officers with body-worn camera that gives the police chief the ability to make immediate investigations and hold all of our officers accountable.
So do you think this model will work in D.C. as it's worked in New York City?
I don't know all of the results of New York City or any other place, and the reason why we're here is to continue investments in violence interruption programs to see how they work for us. We know that we have invested in our Office of Neighborhood Services in addition to the Cure the Streets model, and as you heard the Attorney General say, we need more time to see how they work. We know that we are experiencing upticks in violence, and we will use every tool that we can to knock it down. Any other questions?
Off topic?
Yes.
Could I ask you and the chief about two cases that were in D.C. Superior Court today? First, Duran Wint, the lone suspect in the quadruple murder of the Sabopoulos family and their housekeeper, was sentenced to 4 consecutive life terms today. Can I ask you, Mayor Bowser, your stance on the death penalty, and if this case, in fact, gives you any second thoughts on the death penalty in D.C.?
It does not. 4 consecutive terms is a death penalty, and it's warranted. And I applaud our detectives and police for the investigations that they presented the prosecutors with, and that the prosecutors sought the full extent of the law.
And Chief, could I ask you about the Sabopoulos case? What is the status of that case? Is that a currently open, active investigation?
We don't have anything to suggest through the course of the investigation. As you know, when this first occurred, there was a suggestion that there was more than one person involved. We don't have anything through the course of the investigation that points to another person being involved right now. Mr. Wint obviously would have that information. He has not been forthcoming with that. Perhaps after he spends some time reflecting on what he has done, he will come forward with that information. Or if anyone else in the community came forward with the information to suggest somebody else was involved, we would follow up on that for sure.
So just to clarify, it is technically an open case?
It's a closed case because we have made an arrest in the case technically, but if somebody else was involved, we would obviously follow up on that.
And then can I ask you the same question about the death penalty? Because there has been talk that had the district had the death penalty, that would have been something to offer Mr. Wint as an incentive to give up any accomplices he might have had. But short of that, there was nothing prosecutors could offer him that wouldn't see him spend the rest of his life in jail.
Yeah, as you know, we don't have a death penalty here in the District of Columbia. That's something that the folks who live in the district have decided through their legislature. If the folks in the district want to change that, they will. I don't think that's going to happen here in the district. So that's a hypothetical that I really don't see a lot of spending a lot of time on a hypothetical.
Can I ask you about Micaiah Wilson? All 7 defendants appeared in court today for the first time together. You're aware of the Instagram video that a few of the suspects put out where they were singing about why they are the reason the murder rate in DC is so high. A friend of the suspects was singing that to the victim's mother outside the courthouse. One of your detectives actually went in the courtroom and removed him from court today. Your reaction to how this is playing out in that incident today in court? I know you didn't witness it, but
I didn't witness it, and I don't have the details that you're suggesting, and I'm not going to say they're true or not because I don't know of those details. But I will say this, is that I had an opportunity to meet with Ma'Khia's mom. One of the things that struck me when I met with her is the look in her eyes after she lost her 10-year-old daughter. It's something that I will never forget. There is a spot in hell for anyone who would harass that woman or her family after what she's been through.
And can I ask you about that case? Is that still an open investigation? Do you think there are more people who may still be charged in that crime?
We are continuing to work that case, and potentially there could be additional arrests in the case, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So, Mayor, you've asked the council to reprogram $55 million. A lot of the money going to DCPS and DPR, a lot of schools reporting eating issues. Can you just talk about the schools that are experiencing eating issues, and then also answer
Do I
some
have
of
a
the
copy of the, let me see if I can get a copy quickly of the reprogramming.
but then also talk about maybe the response from the folks in around the Fort DuPont Ice Arena who say their money is being taken from the schools, and they're concerned about what that means for the renovation and expansion of the facility.
Sure. So what we have, Martin, is a case where we have some immediate repairs that are needed to our schools, largely around HVAC issues. And on a day like today, it should be really clear that we have some HVAC systems that have lived beyond their years, and we band-aided them, patched them as much as we can, and they have to be replaced. And sometimes when funds are parked in a budget that don't fully meet the project cost, they just sit there until the full amount has been budgeted. So what we are doing, because the full amount for that project hasn't been budgeted, is we're moving it to do the immediate repairs that we need for our schools. I think they're all school-related projects. And then in a later budget year, as happens, we will not only replace that, but we'll work to help get the full project costs. But what it's doing now is just sitting there when we need to use it.
Any comments to the community members and folks who use the ice rink who say it's a community benefit, it's widely used across the city, and they're just frustrated that it may get pushed off a couple of years?
I appreciate that, but I think we all sometimes have to make tough choices, and the things that we need have to come in place and that are ready to go of some of the other things that we can do later.
I guess back to the issue at hand. Can you just talk a little bit more about how what the Attorney General is doing with Cure the Streets is going to play in, complement, work with potentially what's happening in the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement? Because, I mean, it seems like you have two institutions doing.
Sure, and I think that they complement each other very well. The Neighborhood Safety Office has a more broad mission, and that is spread across the city. The Cure the Violence model is focused in two areas, but I think the idea is the same, that you have trusted people in a community that can help spot trouble before it happens and help work with other neighborhood leaders, if you will, who, if they had a different track, would take it and could influence other people in the community. So that's the model. And so we have, if I could make it simply say it, we have a concentrated neighborhood approach and a more broad citywide focus.
So Mayor, the way you're doing it, you're splitting $2 million for, I guess, the anti-violence program, and $4 million is going into your program for job training?
That's correct. It will be invested in, they are synergistic in that if we can create more opportunities, part of the discussion we had in the Mayor Council breakfast also focused on how can we get more opportunities for people who are seeking a different path, and how can we make them available sooner.
And what will it mean for the job training part of it?
Let me ask Unique to talk about how we can make those investments quickly.
Thank you. So at the DC Infrastructure Academy, we pride ourselves on creating training opportunities and wraparound services that not only disrupt poverty, but help to interrupt violence and support violence prevention. We do that through what I believe to be a very simple model. Occupational skills training, that means getting people trained in the necessary essential skills to be successful in a career where they can earn a wage that will sustain and support a family, and then supporting with job placement, and then the necessary job coaching to support them through their career.
How many people do you turn out now?
So far, since we opened this past March, we've seen about 500 people. And those folks have gone through a variety of trainings, and then we support them with post-training employment endeavors.
Finally, for me, how many more will this enable you to?
As many as possible. We don't close our doors, and we're here to serve every district resident that wants an opportunity to improve themselves.
But you don't have a figure as to how many more people?
As many as possible. Thank you.
Just on the Infrastructure Academy, what other investments have been made? Because I know you announced it, I think it may have been last year that it was kind of formally created, or the year before that, but is this the first big investment for it, or were there others?
No, we have a regular investment. Director will.
Yep, so under the mayor's leadership, a historic investment of $4 million was made to support IT training, apprenticeship, pre-apprenticeship offerings. We currently have trainings in solar energy, utility, careers in automotive, and I think I'm missing one more, general labor and construction. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.